Hi everyone, this is Joni. Welcome to Big Tiny Dreams. I'm sorry I don't have any type of fancy or well put together video. Not that I ever did have a fancy one. Yeah, my film crew is on leave right now. I don't have a film crew. Obviously, I don't. Anyway, something got me to thinking when I was at work the other day, talking to a couple of coworkers, and I thought, I will share with my YouTube community something about my family may or may not be interesting to some of you out there. And hopefully I'll have more fun videos that will be, you might feel they're more worth watching. I have some ideas for this week. But being I haven't posted anything in a while, I thought about this, and being I haven't had my grandmother around for a long time, I thought I would share something about her, some of the sayings that she would say, and some of the things that my mom learned from her mom that she passed on that were, I guess, typical Southern sayings. Maybe not typical. I thought they were because, that's just some things that were said. But one of the stories I wanted to first talk about, and y'all might find this very strange because I never thought of it as strange as a kid until I was, getting older. I'm like, why did we call my grandmother that? And then the story came out. So I'm going to tell you what my grandmother was called by me and my cousins. And yeah, maybe you'll find this strange. I don't know. Some people call their grandparents Nanny or Mimi. I'm Mimi to my grandson and to my grandkittens. Well, I know that sounds bizarre there, but one of my daughters has I say kittens, they're cats, they're full grown, but they're my little kittens, and I call them my grandbabies or my grandkittens. And I'll say, do you want to come see Mimi? Because a lot of times they like to come see Mimi. Mimi gives them treats. So I know there's, different names for grandparents and things like that. But I doubt anyone has a grandparent that was called what my grandparent was called, what my grandmother was called. I'm about to tell you what it was and why. We called her Gaggy. Yeah, Gaggy. As I said, once I got older, I'm like, wait, why do we call grandmother this? Okay, so here's the backstory behind that. Hold on a second. My eye is itching. I'm going to pause. Sorry about that. My allergies are going nuts again, and that's part of why I haven't filmed anything in a while. I've been taking between Flonase and Benadryl and conking out and all that. That's a whole nother story. But anyway, back to the Gaggy. That I know it sounds bizarre. Let me start with, I'm the youngest of four in my family. My oldest brother, the oldest, is 8 years older than me. Then there would be my sister, who's 6 years older than me, and then another brother about 2 years, 22 months older than me, and then there's me. So when my oldest brother was a toddler, my mom said she tried to get him to call her mom Granny, just trying to be funny, because anybody that knew my grandmother, she was not that Granny is wrong or degrading or anything, but my mom thought it was funny because my grandmother was very sophisticated, I guess. She did not dress or look like, a typical grandmother like my other grandmother, was a wonderful grandmother, but she like made a lot of homemade things, made her clothes, lived out in the country, gardened and cooked, fresh food from the garden, and was just a very humble, sweet person. Now, that being said, my other grandmother was wonderful too, but just different. So put it this way, she outlived 3 husbands. She was just a real go-getter. She's very funny, witty, and she loved wearing the real nice clothes, always had her hair colored. I mean, she would like die if she saw my hair now. Like, it's not a thing to do to not wear makeup and color your hair. So anyway, my mom was trying to get my oldest brother, when he was a toddler, to call her Granny, thinking that, that would spark a reaction from my grandmother. But as a toddler learning to speak, apparently he couldn't say Granny. He said Gaggy. So being he was the oldest, of all the not only grandchildren from my mom, but grandchildren from her brother's kids that were coming along, after my brother and in between us and all that. It kind of got started as we got together, apparently, and that name always stuck. So that's what we always called her until I got older. Hold on. Okay. I had a kid come in to talk to me. Not just any kid, my kid. And they didn't know I was filming. So anyway, where was I? Okay. We're talking about my grandmother and how we called her Gaggy. So anyway, that's who she was until I became, young adult, much older teenager, I guess. And it just hit me like, that name sounds weird. I don't know that I want to call it. So I started calling her grandmother after that. Doesn't matter, but it was all out of love anyway. So anyway, that being said, excuse me, I thought I would share. Hold on, I'm going to see how much time. Yeah, I'm trying not to go overboard. Some of the sayings, Southern sayings, I guess they're Southern, I don't know, that my grandmother would say, or even taught my mom to say. My mom would say things like, and I remember telling my husband this, and he thought that was like so strange. Like, you can't be like that. Because I'd say, oh, quit acting ugly. Because that's what my mom would say. Like, ugly wasn't a description of how someone looked. I mean, it could be that too, but it was also how someone acted. Oh, quit acting ugly. You don't want to be ugly. And excuse me, one of the things she would say that her mom taught her, which would be Gaggy, pretty is pretty does. And that's one thing she would, instill in me as a kid. I remember her saying that to me often. And which you could probably imagine what that means. In other words, it's like pretty isn't just looking beautiful, young and pretty or whatever. Pretty is what is on the inside and how you act around others. And I guess ugly could be the same way. If you're acting bad, you're acting ugly. Quit acting ugly. So that's one of the things I learned that I assumed was a Southern saying, because I don't hear other people talking like that nowadays, or at least here in Texas. And one of the other things, and me and my cousins have joked about this, one of the things my grandmother would say is, I don't have any earthly idea. And I never realized what she was saying. Well, I sort of knew what she was saying, but I kind of realized, wait a minute. She means idea, but she called it ID. I don't have any earthly idea. And we know she was always kind of, not always, but when she was, heard something overwhelming or whatever, she goes, oh, dear Father. So that's another saying. And then what else was it she used to say? Let's see. Have any earthly idea? Oh, dear Father. Oh, and this is another thing that maybe other people have said this, and I've said this to my kids a lot. Like, well, it's 6 of one and half a dozen of another. And some people will be like, what? Now, us older people might get that. But in other words, half a dozen is 6. So if it's 6 of one and half a dozen of another, it's kind of the same thing. So in other words, when you're trying to figure out a situation, which is worse than the other, excuse me, I don't know, should I do this or that? Is this one worse than that? I don't know. 6 of one, half a dozen of another. In other words, it kind of doesn't really matter. And I think those are the main things that stick with me about my grandmother. I do miss her. There were times that, like, oh, grandmother, but there's so many good times and fun stories. I remember getting together at my grandmother's house for Thanksgiving, and, her, of course, doing the turkey and all that. And we would all bring some sides and stuff. And she had this house that had like your formal dining living, then your little eat-in kitchen, but yet they also had this sunroom, or some people would call it a Florida room, where there was a table out there and chairs and stuff. It was like not just screened in, but had the windows and all. So we would always tease as kids as getting to graduate from the table outside to maybe the table inside to the table with the adults. And because that was always how it was, we didn't get to sit with the big people, as it goes. Excuse me, my allergies are, it seems like every time I film, I'm having allergy troubles. But really, it's just that I'm having allergy troubles whether I'm filming or not. Anyway, that was one of the things I remember about my grandmother. Oh, my grandmother was Southern Baptist, and I didn't grow up that way. My mom grew up Baptist. She wasn't anymore. We were in some other religion at the time, but the religion that me and my mom, my family were in, we did believe in drinking, and but my grandmother's church did not. Now, that doesn't mean my grandmother didn't drink. She had, like, the cabinet above the fridge would be all her alcohol. And I didn't realize what a stash she had till I came home one day I come home from work or school because I was in junior college. We actually at one time lived in these townhomes that were like connected I say connected, you couldn't walk through from one to the other, but we were right next door to each other so that we could look out for my grandmother. And so I would go, check on her. And I walk upstairs. Her living room and kitchen were upstairs, and ours was downstairs. And ours, she had a 2-bedroom, we had a 3-bedroom. I go over to see her one day, and she had all this alcohol on her dining room table. And I was like, "Oh, what do you?" She goes, "Oh, she was going through it all and cleaning." She would have I say a maid, whatever, like hire someone to come and help clean every now and then. So they were cleaning out the alcohol cabinet. And she starts laughing, telling me that the I don't know what you call them for a Baptist church. In my church, we called the preacher or whatever the pastor. So I don't know if it's, or the minister, if it's minister, pastor, preacher, whatever it's called in Baptist church. Her preacher, I'm just going to say preacher, came over for just a visit out of the blue, come to check on her. And she said she didn't realize it till he left that she had all that alcohol out on the dining room table. And she was a little bit worried because, apparently they weren't supposed to be drinking alcohol and going to, well, maybe not, and going to church at the same time, of course, but the way her church believed, you're not supposed to drink alcohol at all. So we got a huge kick out of that. And one of the things my grandmother would do when we were little, I must be about 5, 6 years old at the time. My grandmother would come by because my mom was a single mom, and we lived in a trailer park at one time. And actually, my grandmother helped her to get that because my mom had been a stay-at-home mom, and she said when my dad left, she had like 42 cents to her name and us 4 kids. And me, I was a year old when they divorced, so you can only imagine, between the ages of us all, we weren't that old at all. So we lived in this trailer park. So my grandmother would come and bring us groceries every now and then. And when she would come to visit, she would ask us if we'd been saying, being polite and saying yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am, and thank you. And if she got a good report that we were, then she would give us a $1 bill. So yeah, these are just some of the interesting stories that of my grandmother that I remember. And back in the day, how they have Kool-Aid packets? Well, they used to have the bigger ones because they mainly were the colored powder flavor with the sugar in them. So you didn't have the sugar-free ones much that I remember. So back in the day, some of her little special treats she would bring us with the groceries it was like Kool-Aid, but it wasn't Kool-Aid. If I find a picture of them, I'll try and put it in the video up here maybe. I don't know if I can figure out how to do that. But there would be ones that were like root beer flavored and something else, some other flavors. But it wasn't Kool-Aid. It was some other brand. Just imagine back in the 1970s, because I was born in 1968 and I was like 5 or 6 years old. So yeah, it was around then. But yeah, she would do things like that. And one time actually a couple of times I think she did this. My grandparents owned a little like in an RV park, you owned your own little lot, but it was up in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. It was called Outdoor Resorts of America, and it's still there today, except I think it's called Outdoor Resorts of Gatlinburg, I think, when I looked it up. But I can remember being in the first grade, and we would have field day at the end of the school year and have our little sack lunches and eat outside and do all these, like the sack race and all these things, and get little ribbons for winning stuff. And I don't remember how it all transpired, except for the fact that the last day of school, my grandparents came and picked us up. It was me, my brother, and my sister. My oldest brother, I don't remember him being with us. I don't know what he was doing. But they took us all the way up from the coast, Gulf Coast. It was Goshen, Mississippi at the time we were living. And they drove us all the way up to Gatlinburg, Tennessee. I don't remember how long we stayed the summer up there. But we had some stories to tell of that. We had good times, yeah. This outdoor resorts was magnificent, and it still looks pretty good today. It looks like they could, fix up a couple of things. I actually looked into it one time when I was thinking of doing or I'm still thinking of the tiny home, but I had even thought of getting a camper and just buying a lot and living out there, because you have everything right there in the middle of the mountains, right there next to Gatlinburg. And you had a creek running through the park. You had Olympic-sized swimming pool, and then an adult-only pool off in another. It was a big park, RV park. It's now gated, and they even had a community center with like a little cafe where you can get cheeseburgers and whatever else. And they had miniature golf. I think they had basketball goals, a kids' playground. They have nice big bathhouses if you need, that if you don't have enough like to take showers and stuff in your own RV. But it was just such a beautiful, beautiful place, and I had the most wonderful memories there. So anyway, she took us there, and she had all these rules and stipulations. Just like when we were little visiting her house, she'd have all these hard candies in these little crystal jars or decorative things with a little crystal lid, and the candy would, get to where they all stuck together, and we'd have to get a little knife and chisel them out. And her thing was now just one, because you need to learn willpower. She's all about us learning our manners, willpower, self-control. And I do remember when they had us up there at the park, we couldn't go swimming after we eat. That we had to make sure we took a nap and all that kind of stuff. And then maybe later we could go swimming. I guess, I don't even know if that's really a thing nowadays. I don't know if Mythbusters years ago busted the myth of, do you actually have to wait after eating to swim? I don't know, but she wouldn't let us then. And I may be wrong, but it seems like I remember we had to wash our paper plates because she was, trying to save, even though she did pretty well, which, I can appreciate being thrifty. I'm a thrifty person myself, but I don't wash paper plates. I'm sorry. But I do remember us getting in trouble for something. Actually, I think it was my brother, and she threatened to get the wooden spoon or whatever. But I do remember, even back then, she took us a couple of times. There was another time it was just me and my brother when we were older. But this story here, you're going to think is crazy, because I look back now and I'm like, what? And I had the picture of it, and I lost it. If I could find it, oh gosh, I would share it. But imagine I was like 6 years old. We're driving through the Smoky Mountains, and of course, you have the little black bears, come through the mountains every now and then. And I do remember on the Smoky Mountains, as you're driving, they would have these little cutouts of the road where you could, like a shoulder, where you could pull over and park, if you wanted to, I don't know, stop and have a snack or a drink in your car, or just to look at everything. Well, we're driving, and she sees a little black bear, a little bear cub. I say a bear cub. It wasn't that big, but it wasn't like a little itty baby either. It was walking towards the parking area, she pulled over and told me to go stand by the bear so she could get my picture. And I didn't know any better. So I go and stand by the bear and get my picture made. I say picture made, the picture taken. It's not like it was a professional photographer there. But yeah, there is evidence of that. I pulled it out for my older brother's 40th birthday party years ago because we did a surprise thing for him at my sister's house, and we pulled out this bulletin board and I put the picture up there to, as a memory. And then my sister got divorced, and I think because I left and forgot that there, and I think the pictures ended up with her husband somehow. So, but if I could find that picture, I would share it because I do remember that distinctly. And fortunately, I made it out alive. Yeah. So, yeah, that's crazy, isn't it? Go stand by the bear. At least it wasn't a grizzly bear. I mean, bears are bears. They're dangerous, but I've heard grizzly bears are bigger and can be more aggressive. But can you imagine telling your kid or grandkid, go stand by the bear and I'll take a picture of you? But she was a good grandmother. She took us to, was it Davy Crockett or Daniel Boone, something up there in Tennessee we got to tour. And I remember as a little kid, there was geese wandering around. And as a kid, you're taught when you're meeting a dog for the first time, you put your hand out gently to let them sniff you, and then you pet them. So I just assumed you could do that with the goose. Well, apparently you can't because it bit me. And then she took us to the Lookout Mountain, and it seems like, was it Rock City? Is there something up there in Tennessee called Rock City where if I find any of these, maybe I'll post some pictures in the video where they had this it's like part, you walking through the huge caverns and things like that, and they called it Fat Man Squeeze. So it's like these big, I don't know, boulder type things that are very narrow to get through. I might not be able to get through it today with my size. As a kid, I was okay. But it looked pretty narrow. And there was all these little, it was like museum type things all in the caverns and stuff. She took us to that. Then we went to Cherokee, North Carolina, and saw some things over there. But I just remember being scared on the ride because it seemed like you're on the very edge of the mountain and you could see way down. And I'm so afraid the car is going to slide off the mountain somehow. But of course, we were fine. I'm still here. But anyway, those are just some of the stories and good times I remember of my grandmother. And maybe I'll put a picture of her up again. I had one on one of my Mother's Day videos of her and my mom. But I do miss my grandmother's sense of humor. I remember bringing, I don't know if it was someone I was dating or something, or someone come to see me. I took them upstairs to meet my grandmother, and they said something joking to her, and my grandmother just went right with it and joked right back at him, and kind of like, took him aback because, people didn't expect that of someone that was your grandmother, but she was very witty, and bless her heart, as we would say. I miss her. I know my family does too. And anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed these little stories and, little bits that I had to share about some of the Southern sayings I've learned. I'm sure there are a few more out there that I can't remember at the moment. But hopefully I'll have more fun videos to share later. And I hope you've enjoyed this. If you have, can you please give it a thumbs up and subscribe? That would help me a lot. And I've appreciated all my subscribers thus far. And hopefully you stick along for the journey some more. So you guys be blessed. And until next time, bye.